Welcome, one and all, to the Success Curious podcast. It's your man, Andy, here, and I am delighted, like a thorn between two roses, to be joined by a couple of highly intelligent, highly intellectual, and I will say tremendously observant individuals, and I'll explain why in a sec, in the co-authors of Full Stack Human, Dara Simkin and Tane Hunter. Now, team, these two players are, look, I've started reading this Full Stack Human book, and I can't tell you, I can't stress to you how on point and relevant this bloody thing is. Now, I know about you two, right? But loads and loads of people talk about, we've all got to be more human and all this sort of stuff. It kind of bores the shit out of me. But what you guys have done is actually bring something that's got such a greater sense of practicality to it, which for me is kind of like things like mental health, right? There's loads of talking, but not enough doing. And I think that what this book really does represent for me is a whole lot of doing in a world that needs a lot of stuff to be done. So I'm absolutely delighted that you guys have made me feel privileged to have you on this show, and I really can't wait to have a bit of a dig into this whole thing around being human in a very tech-dominated world. Now, before we crack on, though, Dara, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. And ladies first, because I am a British
A
chap.
British gentleman.
I am all that sort of jazz. Dara, if you could let everybody know who you are and just give us a quick elevator spiel as to why you are here today.
I am Australia's leading voice in play at work. This is my 10th year in this space where I've really been trying to change the way the world sees the importance of play in the workplace, also in life in general. But I do believe that we as adults have a huge deficit of play in the way that we show up in the world. It leads to diminished optimism. It leads to stress, burnout, so much depletion in the way that we arrive. And I've been incorporating play and experiential learning in organizations from government to Google and everything in between, really trying to explain that learning in the workplace does not have to be boring as batshit. We don't need to use PowerPoint and strangle people with strategy. We need to really give people a place where they can stretch themselves and connect and be authentic in the way that they, learn from each other, learn new information. So, yeah, I believe that play is the antidote to so much of the modern woes of society. And if we just allowed ourselves as adults to have more permission to play, I do honestly believe that the world would be a better place.
Amazing. Tane, over to you, my friend.
I unashamedly am a nerd. I'm a nature lover. I like long walks on the beach, cats and dogs equally. I have a checkered past that led me to what I do today. First, professional cyclist. I have a national title in the U.S. I was born in New Mexico, but I ended up sailing for a couple of years and ended up in New Zealand managing wineries, did 5-6 years in hospitality, and then I went back to academia. So former cancer researcher, using AI and machine learning to read the code of life and working with clinicians to improve patient outcome. But now I'm a recovering academic because so much incredible innovation is going on behind the ivory towers, and I wanted to communicate that to the wider public to make change happen. So I founded Future Crunch, which is a thought leadership and research company. We've got a pretty simple mission. It's really to look at the advancements in science and technology and examine their intersection with society, culture, and the global economy. We share stories of human progress to get people excited about what's actually possible out there, the millions of people doing great things to make this world a better place. And we work a lot with individuals and organizations to help them understand what's going on as we move into this new uncertain era, and use science and nerdage to back that up, to keep the facts sacred.
Oh man, we're gonna have some conversation, us three. I tell you that now. There's some stuff that you guys have just popped up there that is instantly going to take us away from the agenda. So we're just going to scrap that right now. Team, before we get stuck into some of the real meat and veg of this, how did you guys come together to write this whole thing? How did this all come about?
Ladies first.
chivalry isn't dead, as they say. Yeah, Tane and I are both from the States. We were sort of in the same social circles for quite a long time. We share a couple of mutual friends. And I was doing a lot of facilitation and presenting around play, Tane around adaptability. And yeah, we just kind of came together one day. He and his previous co-founder, Gus, were kind of going their separate ways. And I was like, hey, I have a proposition for you.
There you are.
I think that adaptability is just play in a fancy suit. So
Oh,
let's talk about what's possible. And yeah, so we started to design workshops and things like that. Tane had been at South by Southwest, the first one that was in Sydney, and delivered this idea of a full stack human, which didn't really have play in it at the time. And so we kind of evolved that idea together and added some more meat to the bones of it. And then the second year of South by Southwest, Tane and I delivered a workshop called Adaptability at Play. And someone from Wiley, a lovely lady called Jordan, was in the audience and approached us afterwards and said, hey, do you want to make this a book? And we were like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
great.
Fuck yeah.
And how long did it, Tane? How was the writing process for you, especially co-authoring? I mean, I know I did my own heading when I wrote mine. So, so how did that process go between the two of you? Bringing two, well, I don't know if I'm making an assumption here or a presumption. There's definitely a difference in energies and whatnot, right? So, how did this come together to produce this pretty brilliant bit of work, actually?
Yeah, well, Dara gave me some fun insight that play really is a powerful force. It's not frivolous. It's not a nice to have. It's not beanbags and ping pong tables, in the office. It can be quite a serious method to keep you open, creative, and connected to fellow people. It's a state of high engagement with low threat. And for businesses, that's when the innovation, the magic, the secret sauce happens. And so the book was really about bringing neuroscience, play, and adaptability and human skills back into focus to deal with this rapidly changing, very chaotic world. And so the writing process was, we started, woohoo, we're going to do this. And then we started writing. I'd say about 50% of it was, we were just, yeah, fuck yeah, this works. And then the other was arguing, changing ideas, challenging, lots of long discussions. But what comes out in the book is where we got to furious agreement. So where we could apply this to the more general population and help people be more human in a world ruled by technology.
It's a really interesting thing, I'll be honest. I'm at a little bit of we're at a junction in this little conversation where I could take any number of paths here. There are a bunch of different paths that we could go down. I really want what you just said, though. Let's start with the last what you just said at the end. Let's start with that one where you said more being more human in a technology driven environment or and I have this theory. I'm actually literally going to be going and doing a talk at a tech thing in a couple of days' time where I just have this belief because I'm a geek as well, man, and yeah, I don't mind it. I'm pretty cool with it. The glasses make people think I'm clever anyway, at least. So it's just when I open my mouth that it becomes a problem. But I have this firm belief that all that tech is ever designed to do is to allow humans more time to be more human to more humans, right? That's all it's supposed to do, right? And yet, there have been countless, and I'm sure you guys are across this more than me, countless studies, MRI studies, and so on and so forth, that are showing a distinct devolution of the creative part of our brains, right? And essentially showing that humans are becoming more robotic as robots become more human. And so, Dara, when you talk about fun, and play at work, right? And how you determine it to be a tremendously powerful thing that is so far beyond the superficial nature that I think people define it as. Um, how do you feel the fun part is connected to creativity, and how that is what is fundamentally human being? Because I've got a thought, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this whole connection between the whole lot of them.
Yeah, so play actually fertilizes our brain. It creates new neural pathways. It develops a protein in our brain that helps to improve cognition, memory, like creativity and things like that. It also helps to release feel-good hormones, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. So from a mental health and well-being perspective, play is just like basically pumping our body in ways that we truly and deeply need in order to navigate technology. And I think, in the work that I've been doing with businesses is realizing that everything is high stakes all the time. And when that's the case, we are overloaded with cortisol, our stress hormone. We're in fight or flight mode. Our body is basically under threat. And from a neuroscientific perspective, we can't actually access the creative parts of our brain when we are in fight or flight. All of the blood goes, out of our organs and into our muscles, and we're ready to run or kick ass, And so for us, when we think about like how, you're saying technology is devolving our brains, it's because we're giving too much of the creative process over to technology. It's like, write me a LinkedIn post or create me a video or whatever it is. And instead of using it as a sparring partner and actually coming up with the ideas ourselves, we're just kind of, giving it a little bit of prompting and then expecting it to do the rest. And I think we need to change our relationship to it, and it being more of a sounding board, if anything, than the actual driver of the things that we're trying to build and create. So yeah, I think that, the things that drive us to use technology is societal's overwhelming need of productivity and efficiency, and this idea that, work is salvation, which has been something that's been imprinted in our culture for 500 years, since the Puritan work ethic, really. And it just, AI is supposed to be freeing up our time, but actually it's just putting more pressure on us to produce even more. And until we can really delineate between using our free time and space to be creative, come up with better solutions, solve, all the problems that are coming our way with climate and things like that. But instead, it's now, instead of doing 10 emails, I'm doing 100. Or instead of, taking a little bit of time to create an MVP or, a prototype or whatever it is, now I'm just pumping it out because I can do it as quickly as possible with AI. So I think there's this fallacy that's being created around, like that speed is good, when actually speed and productivity and efficiency is what's driving us further and further away from the fundamental qualities that we have that make human beings amazing, and go to the moon and invent pizza and all the things that we're able to experience and enjoy. It's being destroyed because we're trying to continue to grow. There's no end to the growth of more this, more that. Let's just keep growing, which is obviously what capitalism is about. So I feel like, yeah, we just need to slow the fuck down.
Oh man, that is yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know, team, if you can sense the energy to which Dara is articulating herself just now, but yeah, I think it's safe to say that she's pretty keen on the topic. Look, I'm already sold. I'm already bought in. Now, Tane, I'm starting to get a bit of a distinction here, because you said to me before we started that you are a world-class science communicator. Is that right?
Yes, I've been accused of it a few times.
Oh, so yeah, sorry. Yeah, Tane, by the way, team, is very, very he's, it's not like he's got a load of trophies and whatnot. If you can't see him, he's not got loads of awards stuck around the background and all that sort of stuff. Oh, how did that get there? But Tane, what I'm really sort of vibing here, what I'm starting to feel from an energy perspective, is that this book is kind of, and tell me if I'm wrong, but it feels like you're the person that is bringing the science, the stats, the data, the analysis, and all that sort of stuff. You're the sort of one that gives us almost the historical, empirical evidence, and then you've almost. It feels like you've. Is this a process where you've sort of loaded the Dara Simkin cannon and just let her fire? Is this sort of kind of not quite,
No.
or am I totally off the mark?
No, I bring some evidence, but don't sell Dara short. She brings heaps of evidence and has really learned a lot about neuroscience and whatnot as well. But I tend to be the science liaison. I double check the facts and make sure all of our references are sound. And my background is in systems science and evolutionary biology. So it's really about understanding the architecture of our biology, in particular the mind and how it works. So in the book, one of the first things we start off with is our cognitive biases, these invisible forces that really guide the way we react to change, to overwhelm how we view the world. And so that's what I bring, but definitely no. I didn't load the cannon with Dara. Dara was
No,
already
no.
firing.
What I mean, what I mean by that is that I get the sense that, and you kind of agreed with me there in a roundabout way, because you said you're the one that helps to verify and substantiate and fact check and all that sort of stuff. But I just feel that the energy is you're almost like the beating of the drum, and Dara's the one that brings that fun, the energy, in the sense of, it's all well and good, because the thing is, I think there are some people that are trying to correct this imbalance too far the other way, and really not having any sort of basis of truth or factual or whatever. They're just trying to say, nah, screw the system. It's all about this. It's all about having fun and da 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 da. Whereas I get the distinct impression that this pairing comes together really, really well, because Dara, you are very much grounded in reality and science and all the rest of it, right? You understand how the world works. You're not away with the fairies by any stretch of the imagination. But I just get the sense that Tane, it's almost like you're the sort of the yin to the yang from an energy perspective, right? Is that sort of anywhere near the mark, or am I so far off?
No, that's let's call it correct for this case. We can roll with that.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, because I've been doing my own research around play, because I am also a nerd. I'm not a science nerd. I'm a play nerd. And so for me, like, I've been researching the science of play since I started this. I just completed my own research project with RMIT University. I did a $3 million research project with a global toy company. So for me, I'm super passionate about play, and I'll stand on my soapbox till the cows come home. But I also realize that people think play is frivolous, and it's like, you got to come with the data, you got to come with the research, you got to come with the numbers, because I'm trying to sell play into the corporate world, like, people are not just,
and that is exactly what I'm trying to get at in a roundabout way. The fact that there is just such a greater level of reality to this entire conversation, because you could go, and this is why I like the book and even the concept of the book, because I've mentioned this book to a few different people as I've been banding around and whatnot, and sort of wandering about and saying hello to a few people, and I've talked about, bringing fun to work, and you get a load of eye rolling going on, right? You do. You get people eye rolling because they're like, oh God, do we have to go take people bowling and all that sort of stuff, which is generally what the corporate environment believes culture, shall we call it, is all about. I think that's been a tremendously bastardized word. But I'm just fascinated to dig into, because you talk about neuroscience. I've got like neuroplasticity sort of games and apps and all that sort of stuff. And you've got to train yourself. You've got to keep taking the brain to the gym and whatnot, and making it as strong as you possibly can. I'm really interested, though, to talk about the whole thing around high engagement but low threat, because corporate environments and whatnot, and this is where I'm hoping the factual part of things really comes out in this, because high engagement, low threat, whereas for a lot of business owners and business leaders, it's very much a case of fun is potentially a high threat to profitability. They see it as P&L first, and anything maybe second, maybe. Right.
Yeah.
But then you've got that layer of mental well-being and all that sort of stuff, which seems to be more about more about preventing disaster as opposed to creating well-being. It seems to be more of a defensive mechanism as opposed to a constructive forward-thinking mechanism, I believe. Dara, like, and I know, like, so having done some of the homework, you've very much you've come from a numbers-based background and just brought your fun sort of personality, your fun strand of your DNA, I expect, to this whole game, which is really, really cool. But how much pushback? No, in the terms of the pushback that you get when you talk about this, right? How do you manage to bring a level of practicality to the whole concept of fun that allow people to actually accept this as viable, for whether it's their organization or whether it's education systems or whatever the case may be?
Well, I think it's very plain and simple to look at the institutions that are currently in existence and how they're all shit. Like, where the
Expand on
low
that.
well,
Expand on that.
I mean, every other kid's got ADHD because like the attention is just fragmented, and so we're trying to put them in these institutions where they have to sit down and shut up and still do rote learning, which we know is not the way forward for the kind of brains that we need to navigate this world that we have no idea what's happening. When we think about the workplace, people are the most disengaged that they have ever been. The new Gallup State of the World like work report, something like 22% of people globally are engaged. Managers are the least engaged that they've ever been, and they're the ones who are actually the ones that are supposed to be deploying all of this new AI stuff. And so when we look around and we're like, what are we doing? Like, what are we actually doing fundamentally as a society where we are heavily medicated because of mental health issues? We are some of the most unhealthy, overweight, just like versions of ourselves that we've been in who knows how long. And so I think we have to realize that the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. And I think sometimes we fear change so much that we don't want to do it. But actually, I think if we continue on this trajectory of the way that we put our children through school, the way that we navigate relationships, the way that we go to work, like if we keep on this trajectory, we're fundamentally screwed as a civilization. And we talk about it in the book. And I can hand it over to Tane to talk a little bit more about anti-fragility and things like that. But I'm not standing here wagging my finger and saying that it's the individual's fault. I mean, this is systemic, this is cultural, this is programming, this is, we talk about achievement syndrome in the book, which is very much, the cultural programming that we are fed from a very young age around output, achievement, belonging, value. And it just perpetuates more and more and more as we go into the workplace and we get rewarded for productivity and efficiency. We get raises, we get, holidays, whatever it is. Um, so yeah, this is for us writing this book is a real reckoning, going, hey, if you're done sacrificing your humanity for success, these are the things that we've deeply researched and explored as ways to do that, and as a way through, so that we can live better lives, so we can be more connected and joyful, and like just be more of who we're meant to be as humans.
Now, it really brings me to my question that I always like to ask, which is what your definitions of a successful human are, right? Because within the context of how I talk about it, I like to think that you can break it down into success, connection, influence, and happiness, and they all live in a bit of an ecosystem where one can't survive without the other. Tane Hunter, and I'll come back to you, Dara, in a second for yours, but what's your definition of a successful human?
That's a very easy question to answer. I would say in general, especially in the corporate environment and on an individual level, my general definition is someone who creates more value than they capture. The standard business model is like you've got 1% of the pie that's out there. And so you want to get to 2%, 3% of that pie. That is success in those terms of ROI in business. But if you actually create more value than you capture, you create a larger pie. So your 1% increases and the value for other people increases as well. And I think success is often intricately tied to achievement, but those aren't the same. Success for an individual is really how you navigate challenges, uncertainty, and how you manage your connections with your friends, family, and the surrounding community. And I really think successful people in this day and age focus on the input that they take in rather than their output. We have this idea of information diet, the same way that we think of a culinary diet, the food we eat to improve our health. You know, leafy greens, dietary fiber, lean meats, etc. I think people need to choose information and knowledge that feeds them. Choose your narrative nosh that actually nourishes you. And it has an effect on your mental health. The mainstream media and the corporate environment is constantly go, 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 threat, 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 do more. But that shuts you down, and it shuts down your prefrontal cortex and stops connection, creative problem solving, and joy and fun. So I think bringing back joy, fun, and serious play into the workplace is actually a highly valuable thing, and that starts with the information that you feed yourself. So choose long form reads like our book to gain back your attention, and that will deal with ADHD and our attention deficit. And look for solid fact-based feats of human ingenuity and solutions that are available out there that really give you hope, agency, and pathways forward to create solutions and build a better future for us all.
Dara, I want to know your definition, right? But then I've got a follow-up that's already in the gun. So what's your definition of a successful human?
I think that success is ease. I think that
That's literally the quickest. That's literally the shortest answer for that question I've ever. Even if I thought I
like
had the
it.
shortest answer, right? And you've managed to beat me by 2 words.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about success, especially since writing the book and exploring the idea of achievement syndrome and things like that. And for me, success is ease and how we can move throughout our life with a sense of just like purpose and meaning and connection that like there's not an addiction to chaos. And I think that, going into the information diet piece with Tane around, sensationalized, high, like just intense negative stuff is just perpetually spat at us all the time, which just makes us feel so fried and frazzled. And I think, ease just means like we don't chase. Ease means that we are content. Ease means that we can be with ourselves and other people with a sense of just peace and understanding. And so yeah, for me it's just like how do you find ease in your life, ease in your relationships, ease in your work, ease in the way that you relate to money. Just and it's not to say that it needs to be easy, because I don't think life is easy, right? There is difficulty and challenge and shitty things happen, but it's like, how do we ground ourselves in a way where we can move through those moments, connecting to the feelings, feeling them, processing them, not hiding, not chasing, but just like being present with what is. And for me, that's ease, and it's hard finding that. That's something that I am, I think about on a daily basis in my own life of how do I find more ease.
Ease is hard. There is your title there, Adrian, by the way. I'll just note as a thank you for these. Now, allow me to play devil's advocate for a few moments, please, gang. And Dara, I'm going to stay with you as mentioned. Now, you mentioned the word authentic has come up in the early part of this conversation, and I absolutely love the fact that you when you were talking about your definition, then you talked about ease of connection with oneself and those around us, right? And you thankfully said connection with those around us, because I believe that authenticity is being widely misunderstood. So give us your idea of what you class as authentic as it pertains to being a full stack human going into the next phase of evolution, we could call it, right? Because I feel that banging on about authenticity and being authentic is leading to it's actually contributing towards a huge sense of loneliness in society's existence. So talk to me about authentic approaches as it pertains to becoming more human as we deal with tech.
It's a very pertinent question. I actually have been doing some culture work with a not-for-profit, and I ran a session with them yesterday where we were really exploring their values on an embodied level. So activities, experiences, discussions around like, what do these values actually mean? Because otherwise values are just bullshit words on a poster that get named every once in a while on the strategy day, and people are not actually really connecting to them. And we did this activity that's called ability spotting. And it's in groups of 3 or 4, and people are invited to share a story of their life. It can be any story they want. It can be from their childhood, from yesterday, from an experience, whatever it is. And the other people around them just sit and listen. And then basically at the end of the story, they share the things that they heard that person espoused. So maybe you tell an experience of your life. It's like, oh, that sounded like that took a lot of courage. Or you were really vulnerable in that moment. Or, wow, that was a really creative way of looking at that. And so that shared experience, then we did a little bit of a harvest around, okay, so what is authentic? And it was this idea of a shared experience of vulnerability. And when we are actually being vulnerable, we are in our most authentic place. And there's a really big difference around like fragility and fallibility, which we talk about in the book. So when we sometimes think about vulnerability, we can sometimes feel like it's like trauma dumping, or just like, like talking about our emotions and just like leaking out of us, when we're not setting our own boundaries around how we want to share something that's really technically a bit exposing, right? So, it's like how much of myself can I share where there's a sense of kind of empathy that exists within that space. And through that empathy and shared vulnerability, we can then all be authentic because there's a sense of permission that's being created in that space. So I think sometimes, like, are we being authentic for ourselves? What, like, because for me, it's like, I want to be authentic so that I can connect more deeply with other people.
Bang. That last line there, gang, if you don't rewind and write that last sentence down, something's not right, right? Because what you just said then, Dara, that is a full grand slam home run of knowledge, of intellect there, that I think is essentially at the core of so much that I'm not going to say that is wrong, that could be so right if we get there, right? And I think that language is playing a much greater part than what we're giving it credit for in a minute. And the world's ready to feel good again, man. I think you two are very much going to be knights of the round table when it comes to this shit, which is amazing. So now, Tane, I want to do a little bit of a devil's advocate with you, my friend, because the actual subtitle to this book is "Staying Human." To stay human, it's the mindset upgrade you need to stay human in a world ruled by technology. And you talked about you're very much a purveyor of knowledge around how the brain is actually made up and how the mind works and all this sort of stuff. When we say ruled by technology, how much of this is it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy? Because at the front of every technological advancement, there is a human being playing with it at some point, right? So who is actually ruling tech?
Well, I would say the big 5 AI companies and the big fossil fuel companies, I would say, are currently controlling tech.
But they are led by humans, though, still.
Yeah, well, the way I like to think about it is, technology is made by us, for us, and hopefully to help us out. Technology is to humans as nests are to birds. as dams are to beavers, and we're just naked apes that, got lost between the river and the forest and ended up making atomic weapons, vaccines, AI, and the wheel. One of my favorite quotes is from E.O. Wilson, and I think he sums it up perfectly where we're at in general with humanity. He says, humans have this problem. We have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. And therein lies the tension. And I think we forget that what comes in comes out, especially with AI. It's only as good as the data we feed it. And people aren't taking enough control of their own data and how they use the algorithms. And they're blindly taking the output, creating AI slop, work slop, and everything like that. And that is fundamentally making us act more like robots and homogenizing us. So I think adding authenticity is an important part, and intention to how we use technology. And I think that changes everything.
So, so I'm just going to keep nudging down this little track a sec, if I may,
Of course.
because it can be argued quite, I would have thought, in a rather sort of black and white way, that there is too much to stop the flow, or to try and, essentially what we're talking about is trying to swim upstream or trying to change the direction of the river completely, almost, right? If to look at it holistically, which, if we're to look at it in reality, it's not likely to happen anytime soon. An oil firm isn't just going to get an attack of conscience, right? They're just not, right? So and it's I kind of relate it to how I see parenting, right? With my two kids, Elijah and Cal. I don't feel that I can stop them from finding out things. So I'd much rather, instead of trying to swim against the tide, I'd rather swim with it and hopefully guide them down the right parts of the stream, right? In order to get them out to sea safely, right? Which is the big wide world. So with that in mind, how can people that are listening to this, that are getting and the sentiment is almost universal, right? When it comes to normal Joes like myself. But how on earth can we learn to accept how the state of play is for now, and then look to make those adjustments that allow us, which are the fundamentals of the book? What are those fundamental adjustments that we can start to make that can allow us to stop trying to fight a fight that we're not going to win, and actually try and fight a fight based on the game as it is now?
Well, we have five major sections in the book. One is called Serious Play, which is about introducing play, fun, and joy into your life in active ways. And that really changes your daily life and how you choose to use technology and show up in the world. We have Radical Curiosity, and this releases some of the main chemicals that play and fun do as well. That awe and inspiration, being curious and searching for better solutions instead of just going down the status quo bias. You actually challenge the status quo, and that opens up huge possibilities. We talk about strategic hope, and that hope really isn't a noun. It's not a hashtag, it's a verb. You actually have to strategically engage in hope. And that is about creating agency, the belief that you have an ability to bring about change. And this often comes from hard work, setting goals and actually achieving them. But then also there's pathways, which I think people tend to forget. It's ways of seeing a goal and the pathways, multiple pathways to get there. So if one way doesn't work out, you have other options, and that opens up possibility. And we have embodied adaptability. It's a skill that you can really flex to deal with change and really focus in on what is relevant. Constantly unlearn old ways of thinking in the status quo and make a conscious and continuous effort to change. And then there is intelligent optimism, fact-based reasons that solutions can be found. It's not toxic positivity. It's really about actively seeking out stories of progress and prosperity amongst the doom and gloom. And so
I love that. Let me just pause you for a second, because that kind of ties in with what I was nudging Dara about, which is what I mentioned, that we can talk all we want, I believe that there is evidence there to suggest that the world wants to be cool, right? It's
Yeah.
doing its best to try and be cool again, right? And yet there aren't enough of us. Too many of us are judging as opposed to being curious, right? We're too busy pandering to a narrative, and it's kind of ties in with my concern as to how businesses and the business corporate landscape can make this sort of shift, because there are so many people that talk a good talk, right?
Mm.
But ultimately, we can't argue with the fact that although money doesn't bring happiness, it is how we can keep on rolling, right? And I know that, and I feel that money, it very much makes you more of what you already are. But for good people, and this is my concern, right? Because if we don't get somewhat practical about, if we're going to try and create some sort of a shift, a needle shift of this nature, we're going to have to get just as good at selling through love as what the world is at selling through fear. Dara.
Yes.
So, elaborating on what you were just talking about with Tane, I believe that we have the choice to be an active or a passive participant in our own life. And through that is how we can decide which way we go with the flow, if we're in the stream or up the stream or around the stream or whatever. And I feel like we have come to a place in humanity where we are plagued with comfortability.
Say that a bit slower.
We are plagued with comfortability.
All right.
So we have built lives for ourselves where we are far too comfortable, which, ironically enough, is causing insane amounts of mental and physical discomfort.
Mm.
It is a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you want to call it that. So when you talk about what can we do, we can choose to be an active or a passive participant. An active participant lives with intention, lives with this reason of a why. Not why is this happening or why can't I do this, but why is this important? Why does this matter to me? And when you have a why of why something matters to you or why something's important, it makes you want to act. It makes you want to participate.
Mm.
If we can't define what's important to us, what matters to us, what's the point? We become
Mm.
passive. We become passive participants. And if you think about all of the 5 capabilities that Tane just talked about in the book, there is passive play, and then there is active, serious play, where you see the value in it, there's intention behind it, and it can completely change the way that you live your life. There's curiosity, which is sometimes just self-interest fueled by judgment. Or there's radical curiosity, which matters because we want to say, I think there's a better way. Why don't we try this? Or what's possible if we give this a go? Same thing with hope. There's blind hope, passive hope. This is all going to be okay. We're all good. Kumbaya. Or there's strategic hope, where you're intentionally thinking about solutions, pathways forward. Same thing
Could
with
you argue?
optimism.
Could you argue that the positive version of hope could you argue that that could be faith? Like
Um,
a scientist doesn't start experimenting on something in the hope that something works. They have faith that something is true.
we like to say hope is a verb. It's actually actively doing something about it. It's not passive. It goes back to Dara's point. You're actively engaged in hope. You see pathways and you see your agency in a solution and tools, community that you have to go out there and make something happen. And you can have hope in that. Faith is more of a belief,
A
regardless of
belief.
what happened. Yeah, which is
Mhm.
different than strategic, active hope and courageous intelligence, which leads to optimism. And I think active adaptability, where you really embody it and make a conscious effort to challenge the status quo and really rethink the way your MO, the way you live in the world. And so I think really setting your intention, having a strong purpose and commitment towards that, that's where you get to be active rather than a passive player. I'm not anti-faith, but sometimes it's on the bit of a passive side rather than active.
Interesting. Now, Dara, you've mentioned yourself that we all have challenges at various points in time and so on and so forth. And then yeah, you're absolutely right. Life is a choice, and I'm starting to believe that there's a lot of talk around stress right now, and we've talked about fragility in this conversation already. And I have, and I would love to test this sort of theory on you guys here, and for you to either blast me out of the water with stats and intelligence, or as I'm just wafting around with passive hope, yeah, or I might be onto something, because I believe that pressure and stress are the same. It's the same experience, right? But pressure is the positive version where we can choose pressure, and stress is something that is an energy that is pushed up on us by either a broken system or a broken strategy or a broken workplace, or we are being pushed down a path that we don't belong on, in a sense, where we're stressing because it's something that we're not designed to be in. Like this isn't right, for want of a better word, right? What's your, when it comes to this whole fragility thing, and making this sort of one man distinction around pressure versus stress, where pressure is a welcome thing, and you hear all these phrases like pressure is a privilege and things like that, and I thought that was a little bit of a wank, but I actually feel that there is some validity in it, because I believe that pressure is a choice, whereas stress is thrust upon us, and it's both invoking the same amount of chemical reaction. Am I even right in going down that path, or am I talking a whole bunch of shit?
I would say you're right to a degree. I think some stress that we feel, we actually are actively giving it to ourselves. Like, think of every time you turn on the news or your social media feeds. You're getting stressed out because there's war, there's destruction, there's climate change, crisis in Iran and Gaza, Ukraine, and then but we can do nothing about it. We get stressed out, and over time that really lowers our capacity to put internal pressure on ourselves to actually do something about it. So I think there's hidden stress in the way people consume information that affects all of the facts of life. Stress at work is a natural thing, and if your boss is a dick and your KPIs are ridiculous, there's not much you can do about that. And if you're lucky, you can leave a
But
job.
no one's got a gun to your head. You can always choose to go to a different work.
I mean, most people can, but some people can't afford to. Some people are trapped, so I don't want to leave those people out of the conversation. But yes, some of the things, people are just blinders on, in a rut, keep on trucking. And those people, I would encourage them to rethink their options. Because if you redraw the boundaries of what's possible, that changes everything. And I think most people sit on the cynical side of things, and cynicism is easy. You're never wrong or disappointed when things go bad.
Dara,
I think there's always, you have to be very cautious about privilege
Yeah.
when we discuss things like, oh, just leave your work, or just, like, we have to, like, there's got to be a consideration of privilege, and
expand on that further, because that whole I'm not a massive fan of the word privilege, right? I'm not a massive fan of it, which is why I didn't really sit well with that phrase at all. I still don't now, but I feel that while there's always time, there are always chances that you have. Like, we're talking about, you can choose, right? So like what you said before, Dar, about you can choose to be active or choose to be passive. Like, one could argue your point around privilege at that, right? Because there are some
Yeah.
people, for example, from a cultural perspective, that are bound culturally to be passively faithful on, passive about certain things. Like,
Yes.
it might not be fundamentally right for them as a human being, but culturally speaking, they toe the line, shall we say, or they have to toe the line, because otherwise there'll be a level of ostracizing that wouldn't be bad thinking about, right? So when it comes to this whole choice thing, because you could argue that to say, oh, you've always got a choice, which is what I just said, the instant counter from a cynical perspective is, "Oh, that's so flippant of you to say. You don't know where
mm,
I've been. You don't know where I've come from." Da 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 da. Right? It's a standard defense mechanism that society tends to smash back at these sorts of
Mm.
notions. Right? So,
mm,
how do we calm this sense of attack when we talk about choice,
mm,
when we talk about
mm,
these sorts of things, right? And how can we bring it to a level? Because because I believe that tech is an inanimate object. Is how humans have used it. That's caused all the drama, right?
Yes.
Right. But Dara, how on earth do we calm this down to a point where people
mm.
can start to move forward? Because the world is in such a, like you said, fight or flight mode at the minute. So how do we
Mm.
bring people to a point where we can let the dust settle to a second so we actually see the landscape for what it is as opposed to what we're perceiving it to be?
I mean, I think it fundamentally comes down to the ability to be flexible with your thinking. And we talk about strong patterns lightly held, strong opinions lightly held. How do we move out of this intense binary way of thinking left and right and black and white and yes and no and right and wrong? Because being a human is nuanced, and every single human being has a different experience. And when we come at things with very binary ways of describing choice or faith or belief or whatever it is, we're not creating a full enough spectrum of where humanity sits.
We seem to
um
have this obsession though with being right or wrong.
yeah,
It's a
Mm.
very,
yeah.
like, is it right in saying that that's quite it's like a fundamental human thing to want to find right versus wrong, or is that something that has been taught over millennia?
Well, I think that's like when we talk about harm
Hmm.
from that perspective, like from like harm, there is, I believe, a right and a wrong of harm. But when
Hmm.
we talk about right and wrong around so many other things, it's going to differ between cultures, genders. I mean, yeah. I mean, we're getting super existential here at the moment. But I
Yeah.
think one thing that I wanted to bring up, and we've not really talked about this sort of stuff before in this angle, so I appreciate being pushed by you. So thank you. Like, you know, activism exists because people who are generally not from a privileged space go, this is fucked. And we need to change this because this is not right.
Hmm.
So I think, yeah, again, it's so I'm just like kind of speaking while I'm thinking because it's just so nuanced. And some of us, it's that nature nurture debate as well. Some of us by nature are seekers. We are more inclined to be active. We are more inclined to push boundaries and things like that. But that doesn't mean that those qualities can't be cultivated or learned if we have that drive or curiosity to do that. Like yesterday, again, working with this client, one of the values is bold. Some people are more inclined to be bold. Just that's who they are fundamentally. But to understand what it means to be bold and what that can bring you in your life, and if it serves you and you're not normally that way, like there are ways to move towards that. And like again, our brains are plastic. We can change our brain. So I think when you talked about before, Andy, like, oh, I'm this way, or you don't understand me, or this is my thingy, and blah blah blah. People rise out of adversity constantly.
Hmm.
um but I think we also can't wag our fingers at the ones who don't.
And I think that's probably a really critical thing that we don't cast them, like you said, cast them aside as whatever, right? We have to be mindful that people have been conditioned. I mean, I was a case in point. Both my parents were police officers, and I was brought up to be living on a very conveyor belt line, sort of cog in a machine mindset. around life and work, and this is what I'm supposed to do next, then this, then this, then this, then this, and it led to a full breakdown, and a full requiring to rebuild the whole thing from scratch, sort of thing. But Tane, what I want to ask you, and gang, we're gonna have to do a second part to this because I've just got too much intellect either side of me here for me to be able to consume this in one sitting. There's so many things that I want to ask you to. So Tane, I want to ask you before we start to round things up for this first chapter. What you said there about, and Jim Rohn says it as well, right? You've got to stand guard at the gate of your mind, right? When it comes to what you
Yes.
consume intellectually. However, when we look at the world as it sits right now, we've got a responsibility within ourselves and for those around us to actually be a bit more subjective around and really sort of question the narrative of what's being pumped to us. I get all that and all that sort of jazz. However, it seems to be that whenever someone attempts to be bold in their, and I like that word, attempts to be bold in their ethos, their understanding around certain things, there just tends to be too much talk and not enough trousers around all of this. And that could be argued, it could be because of the fact that there is just way too much information being bombarded at us. But I want to argue, and this is what I want you to clarify for me, because in order for us to be able to enact any sort of real definitive change or shift, we have to be very much in tune with what's happening in current society. We can't pretend that a lot of this stuff isn't happening, which is where I think a lot of the thought leadership tends to be all happy clappy, sunshine and roses, talking from a sense of reality that doesn't really exist. So how can we take, the stuff that you've got in your book, which, by the way, gang, Full Stack Human, you've got to make damn sure you order this bloody thing in the show, and it will be in the show notes for sure. How can we articulate things in a way that allows us to just be comfortable accepting the vulnerabilities in society right now in order to then grow a level of joy and fun and positivity and feeling of good despite all the stuff that we've got going on right now? How can we try and slow this down?
I think you have to start. I'll talk from the individual point of view, and it goes back to nature and nurture, really understanding your nature, your evolutionary hangovers, cognitive biases, because that's
Sorry,
sort of your heart.
let me just pause you for a sec. Evolutionary hangovers. Define that
Yes.
for me.
Well, we have wiring, and put it this way, our mind and brain hasn't had a reasonable update in tens of thousands of years. Yet we've seen more change in the last 10 years than we've seen in the last 100, so we're not equipped to deal with that. And I'll ask you a quick question. What is making you feel negative or bad about the state of the world, Andy?
Well, I feel that the world's just got bored of being negative. That's why I actually genuinely believe that the world's ready to feel good again. Because a lot of it's just become white noise. Because it's just so much of everyone's going, oh, what, another more bad, whatever. I think we're becoming numb to negativity in a sense. Now, again, I might be naive in that thinking, but I'm just looking at the statistics that are on social media that show that way more likes and reposts and all these sorts of things, and this is where, for me, technology is a really, really good thing because it's showing the indicators that the world is hungry for goodness. It's hungry for happy, because you see a positive post versus 5 negative posts, and the positive one will have 2.3 million likes and a whole stack of like reshares and things like that, whereas the negative ones get a smattering of a few thousand now because it's just becoming boring almost.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we're at the saturation point, but the cognitive biases led us here. We're hardwired to react to the dramatic and negative. We're built to deal with the worst thing going on in our tribe, which was tens to hundreds of people, not the worst shit happening all over the world that for most of it you truly can't do anything about. So basically, I would think about nurture. How can you nurture yourself with good stories, good technology, because technology is not good, nor is it bad, nor is it neutral. How can you nurture a purpose with it, your intention, and be active in it? I think that helps take away so much of the noise. And one thing we talk about in the book, which I think is so important, is dialectic thinking, baby. The ability to hold multiple things in your head at once. Multiple truths can be good. A lot of shit is going wrong in the world, but a lot of great stuff is happening too. And also things can get better. And so your ability to stop thinking in binaries, but look at life and the future across a spectrum, and the ability to change your perspective, what you look at, what lens you look at it through, is a highly valuable skill.
I love it, man. I love it. Look, I doubt you guys have got a choice. I'm just going to harass the shit out of you until we do another one, to be honest, because this is just mentally. It's so much fun talking to you two. I love it. So no, I do. It's amazing.
Wait, Andy, how did we meet? How did we meet again?
Yes.
I forgot you after all, because I got so engrossed with the shit that you guys were talking about. I completely forgot. So again, the reason why we're even having a conversation in the first place is because Dara fed my fragile ego one time at an airport where she saw, because I was all suited up and ready to rock and roll. I had my armor on because I was about to go do a talk in Tasmania, I think it was. And Dara and Tane you were heading to Sydney, right, to go do sunrise. And yeah, she looked at me from across there yonder as I was mentally I was fighting with my belt, I think, at the time, because I was going through security, and you have to half strip off time. And Dara just went, I can't remember what the words were, but it made me feel good. And it was like,
I said, you look really smart.
Yeah, and I was like, why, thank you. And so therefore I felt obliged, because I felt good in that one instant, to find out what the hell they were up to. Hence why I discovered the whole book of Full Stack Human, and now I've become a massive fan of the pair of them. And yes, it just does go to show that flattery does really get you wherever you want to go. But I know this is such a cool little story. But before I ask the last question, Dara, what is the lesson in that?
For me, it's making other people feel good makes you feel good. I think that
it is. Making other people feel good. It's kind of like Joey from Friends. Making there's no such thing as a selfless deed, right? And I think that's all right.
I mean, when you think about benevolence and altruism, those are real things where I just don't think that in this day and age, again, because our faces are in our phones. And like the other day I was going for a walk and this guy had his face in his phone and I literally scared the shit out of him because I was walking past him because he didn't know that I was coming. And so, we are so cut off from our surroundings and the people around us that, sometimes it just takes giving a stranger a compliment to completely change the trajectory we're told when we're little not to talk to strangers, which I totally understand. But when you're older and you have more discretion, if you see someone and you like their shirt or you like their vibe or, and I wasn't hitting on you. I was just like, you genuinely looked you looked great. You had like your vest and your tie and your leather bag and your, is it called a quiff? Like the
I don't know what it is, man.
Whatever that hairstyle.
It works.
My hair does, to be fair.
Anyways, but yeah, like.
You did look really dapper.
Well, Lord, like I said, if I can at least give people the perception that I have a belonging of some description, then that's half the battle won for me. But Tane, before I let you go, and by the way, just to finish that little part of the conversation, that's such a golden little bit of the conversation. I've got this thing about in my little sort of daily habits and goals to provide a minimum of 3 random acts of kindness. And
Mm.
that could be something as simple as a compliment to someone that's just wandering past, or giving as I'm going to pick the kids up, giving a kid a bit of a fist bump if they've done something cool or something like that, right? Or it can be something as simple as paying a compliment to someone. And it doesn't have to be suggestive or anything of that sort of nature, right? It can just be what it is. And Tane, last question, before we round it off, is just on that. You know, what is it around technology that makes us become, or what is it, sorry, around the information provided by what is in front of us and all the stuff around us that makes us want to be skeptical about things more? I know that we say that the mind is wired for safety and security, right? So it's now got a natural bias towards that. True. But what other things within the ether of what's going on around, what is it that's making us more skeptical about things?
I would say two things: the exponential nature of it, because technology grows exponentially, and the human brain, we tend to think in a linear fashion, taking
Mm,
changes around us and extrapolating them linearly into the future. But
mm,
technology doesn't grow that way, so it's uncertain and we're terrible at predicting where it's going. I
mm,
I think the other one is, it goes back to Dara's compliment about you looking pretty damn dapper that day. We're all connected, and that's a scary thing, but you can flip that. You can think of yourself as a vector. You could be a fear virus or negative news virus, sharing negative news or ranting, or you can be a vector for positivity and solutions and prosperity. So treating technology as something that is scalable, choose it. Give a damn. Give random acts of kindness. Douglas Adams, the author of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, he wrote an essay called Glimmers, and it's about noticing those little lovely moments in life. Waving to the fireman going by and you get a wave back. Talking to the old lady at the post office, having a chat, see what she's up to. Really cherishing those moments in life and sharing those insights with the world, because we're connected.
love it. Dara, last word with
I
you.
I think that we need to get better with being uncomfortable. I think that
Mm,
when emotions arise inside of our bodies and we get a tightness in our throat or a heaviness in our chest or like, cramps in our stomach, that's our body our body processing an emotion, and it's hard, and we don't learn how to do that, especially, our generation. If we have baby boomer parents and the generations before that and before that and before that, like, I was seeing something the other day on Instagram about how, millennials are the therapy generation. We are straddling between these two worlds of, trying to reconcile the way that we were parented and trying to parent our children better. So we're like trying
Mm.
to figure out how and who we are and how we show up in the world based on our own parenting, and then how we take that learning and, you know, transmute it into something better for our own children. So I know, I'm speaking from experience and just taking all of this, all the learning from the book and all the beautiful people we interviewed and just the whole journey in itself, and learning to sit with myself more and sit with just nothing, just sitting on the couch for 5 minutes in silence,
yeah, man.
sitting sitting in my bed for 5 minutes before I have a meeting, just taking really short little bursts and moments of quiet, which generally I'll like, oh, I'm feeling quite anxious right now.
Mm,
And,
Mm.
being able to sit with those feelings of anxiety and uncertainty and discomfort and whatever it is, and because that's how we feel joy. There is no light without dark. There is no joy without pain. So, Brené Brown talks about it in a lot of her work around vulnerability. The more we numb pain, the more we numb joy. We don't get to
mm,
choose just to
Mm.
have joy. So, yeah,
love
I
it,
think
man. And
Getting getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
the last question that I always ask is, as we head towards the next version of success for ourselves, I always ask, what is one thing that you're working on right now that can help you head towards whatever that next horizon may be? I mean, Dara, it certainly sounds like you already started working on that, right? And should we say a bit more in the moment, or a bit more aware of that immediate environment? I mean, what is it that's made you go down this path?
I've done a lot of therapy in my life in the last 20 years, and I don't think my situation is unique in that I had a challenging childhood. I think a lot of us can relate in our own way. It's not to denigrate my experience by saying, oh, everybody has one, but it just for me, I've realized that a survival mechanism that and this is again from doing the research in the book and also my own self work as well over the years, is I learned how to perform in order to be accepted. I didn't come from parents who really ever told me they were proud of me or validated me, or I was never put into sports or clubs or anything like that. So I had to learn very quickly how to be cute and smart and funny and witty and all of these things that, made me perform, which then means that I'm coming from a place of needing to be validated. And
Mm.
I I've kind of come to this idea in my life recently, is that, I'm worth moving towards, and I don't always have to be the one chasing, pushing, being the kind of aggressor in a situation, whether it's in my relationships, whether it's in my business, like reminding myself that I am also worth moving towards, and I don't always have to be the one to be the bold one all the time and the one that does the thing first and keeps pushing. So, trusting in that, I am, I don't have to be that way, and I can sit more in a state of authenticity and playfulness versus being performative.
Amazing. Tane, same to you, my man. What's the one thing that you're looking to improve or develop or evolve within yourself?
I think probably patience and dealing with the uncertainty of the gap between understanding something and your ability, my personal ability to actively go out there and do things and be
Mm.
able to do it well. I think I need to be able to soak up the awkwardness, the uncomfortability a bit better. And as my therapist says, I have a smart heart and fart framework. I'm good at evidence, keeping the facts sacred. I'm a recovering academic. I got the smart down. EQ, the heart, the emotional quotient, being able to tell a story, connect with people, allowing them to see a better future and their pathways in it. I'm great at that stuff, but she says I need to work on the fart, the jokes.
Mm.
It's a great educational tool, but I often use it to defer uncomfortable emotions. So I should use
Right.
humor less as a way to hide or derail the conversation, and more as a powerful tool to enhance joy and understanding.
Nice, man. Dara Simkin, Tane Hunter. Honestly, you've made my day. You've made my week. And there is not a chance on this planet that you are not coming back onto this show at some stage. Not a chance. I won't let you not come on this. You're an absolute joy, the pair of you. I love the it's the blend of energies, but coming from a very, very focused direction that is very much an in sync collective direction. And I think it's magic, man. It's magic. It really, really is. You're both quite different people, but you both got that same desire, which is just phenomenal. I think you guys are probably a really incredible example as to how people could play together. Which I think is wonderful. Full Stack Human Gang is available on Amazon and all good bookstores and all the rest of it. So make sure that you get a copy ASAP. I am partway through. It is mega. And make damn sure, team, that you follow these guys. They are both they've got their own individual games that they are playing, but they've come together in a symphony that I just think has resulted in a real decent, amazing piece of work that I think the world needs to be more aware of. So, Dara Tane, thank you so much for being on Success Curious. It's been an absolute joy.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Andy. Stay human.
I'll do my best, my friend. And for you guys, I'm sure you've taken a whole stack of notes. I'm going to go lie down for a minute and then go attempt to be a dad. But until next time, my friends, please stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy. Enjoy the rest of your day and go perhaps do a random act of kindness, because a little bit could go a hell of a long way. Speak to you soon, team. Take care.